Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl, Kiki Reader. And we're here. We're on the final book of the Tangled series. I am going, of course, to have all of the links listed below in the description section. And then once you get caught up, join us for our final book in the series, Tangled Up in Love. The book starts out with Harley. And she's in a fetal position on the bed in the hospital. Jackson's going back over what happened, and he's mad at himself for not chasing down the guy that shot Martin and knocked Harley down. So apparently the shooter was on a bicycle when he shot Martin point blank, and then he plowed into Harley and knocked her down. And then he jumped back on the bike, and then he rode away. So they rushed Harley to the hospital. They gave Jackson grief because they're not married and stuff like that, so they gave him a lot of grief. You can't ride in the ambulance. So he of course was pissed, but he just drove his vehicle over, and I think he left it in like the towing section, but he didn't even care when he got to the hospital. He was just trying to get to her. When they left, Julie was of course over Martin's dead body, crying, screaming, just so awful. I am still hurt by that whole thing. I just hate that had to happen. That just makes me so freaking sad. So then we find out that she did lose the baby. So of course she's really in a very detached type of state. And so Jackson doesn't know what to do, so he just works. So he's been getting emails and things like that, and so he needs something to focus on because, like most people, if they don't have something to focus on, the mind's going to wander. Guess what your mind's going to stay on right now? The fact that you lost your baby. So she, of course, sees him working, and she's all like, how can you work at a time like this? But he's like, how can I not? And so at this point, working just kind of allows him not to feel. So that's what he needs to do. So then we go to Harley's perspective, and it goes through like how everything appeared to her as it happened. I'm not gonna rehash that. It's the same thing pretty much. She doesn't remember though. There's certain parts of it she doesn't remember. She doesn't remember how she got on the ground, but she does remember Martin's face, and that's the thing that's plaguing her the most. Is every time she closes her eyes, like all she can see is Martin's face, and that's just. Oh my gosh, it's just so sad. So then the door opens and her parents come in. So of course Jackson, had the PJ go get them. And so, they embrace her and hug her and everything. They cry and all that type of stuff. And Harley's like, let me go back. The mother had said to Jackson, thank you so much again, for everything you've done, helping us get out here, and also for, helping us, giving us that check to rebuild the ranch. Now, why would you feel the need to say that at that moment? I don't really know. I mean, I guess because they were saying thank you for letting us ride the PJ. I don't know. That's just kind of like, what was the purpose? But anyway, Harley, of course, is like, wait a minute, what do you mean? When did you do this? Did you do it before or after you dumped me? So now the parents are confused, and they're like, you guys broke up? And Harley's like, nah, he broke up with me. So she's like, I just need to be alone. So they leave, and then Jackson goes to get some coffee for him and for some tea for Harley. He runs into the parents. There's like a Starbucks and stuff in the hospital. So he sits down with them, and the mother asks, him again, to describe the guy, that was on the bike. So he describes. And so he, tells her, I couldn't see his face because he had a ski mask on, and then he, was wearing all black. And so then Harold poses the question, if it's Parker, then why didn't he just shoot her? And so then Jackson's like, maybe he missed her. And Leslie was like, I don't think so. I think it was a message to her to let her know that he's still around and he's still lurking. And I kind of think, I don't know. I'm thinking it's Lindell, right? The guy Lindell. I'm like, maybe he did it to stir up some stuff. I don't know. At this point, you don't know what's going on. So Harold shows Jackson. Apparently, he got like a news alert, and the headline said, "Recluse billionaire loses unborn child." And Harold's like, "What's this?" And so he didn't want to, he didn't want to tell them about it this way. But I mean, hell, the article's out, so he tells them. And he's like, "Oh my gosh," he was worried because he was like, she's going to be, because I'm sure she wanted to tell him. So he goes back up to the room to bring her tea, and then he was just about to tell Harley that, the news came out and that he had to tell her parents. But right before that happened, the parents came in, and they just came in and gave her a hug, and they were like, "Oh my God, baby, we're so sorry for your loss," and this and that. And she was kind of looking confused, and then she understood what they were talking about, and she actually wasn't upset, which shocked me, because I was like, at this rate, with everything's going on, I figured she would have flipped, but she wasn't upset. She was just actually happy that he told her. The burden was kind of off of her, so she was kind of happy about that. They're trying to think of, again, like, well, who could have leaked it, to the press, but they really can't figure it out. Nothing concrete they can come up with. The mother, however, she thinks it was probably Parker that leaked it. So there's just a lot of theories going on. So then they go to Martin's funeral. A few days later, this was just so sad. And Jackson, of course, paid for it. His whole, all the people from security are there, his family, his friends. Harley's having a really hard time. Because, of course, to her, it's her fault that he's gone. Even though she knows he was doing his job, it just still doesn't take away from the guilt that she feels. So she hasn't seen or talked to Julie since that night. She has tried to call. She has tried to text, but it's just been to no avail. So when she went back to the apartment, I guess that night, not that night, 'cause she was in the hospital overnight. So when she did go back, Julie wasn't there, and so she hasn't seen Julie at all. So she was about to run out, Harley was, because she did not want to go up there by the casket. But Jackson was like, "You gotta go, it's the right thing to do." And so she went up there, and she passed Julie while she was up there, and Julie was just cold to her. And she was just kind of looking at, like, what did I do? And so then she had to go she ran out. It was too much for her. So she ran out, and she went in the bathroom. Julie was in there. So she goes up to Julie, and she's like, "Julie, I'm so sorry for your loss." And Julie says to her coldly, "I'm sorry for your loss too." So then Harley goes to hug her, and Julie pushes her away and says, "I can't. This is your fault." Oh shit. I'm like, oops. So of course Harley's crushed. That's her fear. That's what she feels anyway. And it's like confirmation that I knew it was my fault. And it's like, how can I ever forgive myself? How can I expect her to? Like, she's just so broken at that point. And so Julie was just kind of like, Harley made this comment, and Julie ripped into her. And I'm not mad at Julie, and I'll tell you why. Harley makes the comment, "You're not the only one that lost someone. I lost a baby." And so Julie lost it. She said, "You lost a baby that up until a couple of weeks ago you didn't even want." She's like, "I lost a boyfriend. I lost someone that loved me, that I loved, that, that was supposed to be my future husband. We're supposed to have a family together. I lost everything." And Harley asked, "Shut up." She couldn't say nothing. And I was like, and she was like, "I wasn't trying to, minimize your pain." But no, you were. You were trying to say your loss was greater than hers. That's precisely what she was doing. And that girl shut that shit down fast. I loved it. I'm like, yeah. So, Julie leaves. And, Harley just falls to the floor. And so, eventually Jackson finds her in the restroom, and he sees her, and he's like, just give her some time, just give her time. And so then they go back to her place to pack a couple of, because on her way back, she was just like, can I stay with you? I was like, dang, she just, and I got it. She doesn't, I mean, being in that apartment, you got to think, that's where they all spent time together, you know? Her and, you know, Julie and Martin, that's a lot, you know? I get that. That's hard. That's like super hard. When they get back in the car, Jackson asks her, you know, do you just want to move in? And she's like, yeah, I do. Because she doesn't want to go back to that apartment. So, and I completely understand it. So the next day, she wakes up. Jackson's gone. He let her know he did leave a note that he was going to head to the office and do a couple things. And so she goes to the kitchen, and in walks Aurora. So Harley's like, what are you doing here? Because, you know, Aurora just comes in. She don't care. And Aurora, she doesn't even answer. And so Harley just picks up her laptop and her stuff and walks off. And so then Aurora comes after her, and she's like, why are you leaving? And Harley was like, did I say Harley? It's Harley. I think Holly came out. Harley was like, you weren't talking. So, like, you know, what am I going to stay here for? You know? So then Aurora, you know, she apologized, and she was like, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't say anything. And then she just starts walking back to the kitchen. Well, she doesn't say anything to Harley, so Harley just starts walking back up the stairs. And so, again, Aurora's like, what are you doing? And she say, listen, Aurora, if you want to talk to me, say to me that you want to talk to me. Do not assume that I'm just going to follow you. Like, it's not happening. So then, you know, Aurora finally gets it, like, ding, ding, ding. Because she's kind of used to people just kind of following her, you know. So she gets it, and she's like, I would like to talk, you know. She's like, okay. So they go down, and, you know, Aurora asks, you know, you want some coffee? And she's like, you know, just get me some tea. So they both wind up having tea. Aurora then starts to tell Harley, like, what's been going on with Elliot. So apparently he's had, like, multiple women come forward accusing him, with accusations. And so Harley's like, you know, yeah, that's not hard to believe. And then she tells, you know, Aurora what happened to her. And so Aurora's kind of like throw back, like, what? Like, oh, really? So she tells Harley, you know, how she had asked, I guess she started to ask him questions. And so since she was questioning him, which means, I guess, you don't believe me, so he dumped her. And apparently her husband now wants her back. So Harley just kind of presents to her the idea, you know, how about you just not jump back into something and just kind of take care of yourself? And so, of course, Aurora's like, you know, of course you think like that, you know, but eventually this will all become yours, and it's going to be very difficult to go back to the life you used to live. And so that, of course, gets Harley to kind of thinking, and she's like, you know, I wouldn't become like that. And Aurora leaves out, you know, goes to the bathroom. And then while she's there, Harley kind of starts to go read through her emails. And so she has released her third book in the series. And she's had like a ton of emails, lots of admiration and thanks for the books. And so one brought her to tears. And it was a woman who was kind of describing what's been going on in her life. Her husband, he's really sick. He's in and out of the hospital, and she let her know, you know, your books have really given me such a wonderful escape. And Harley just kind of writes her back, you know, a really heartfelt message. And like while she's sending the email off, Aurora comes back in, and she kind of sees like she's kind of working hard. And Aurora's like, what are you doing working so hard right now? And so that's when Harley explains to her, you know, that she writes. At first she wasn't going to say it, and then she's like, you know what, no, I'm a writer. I need to be proud of this. I need to own it. And so she tells her, you know, she's a writer. And so Aurora goes online, buys her books, like right in front of her, and starts to read them. And she's loving them. And Harley, of course, felt freaked out. And she's like, don't read it in front of me. Like, just wait, you know,